The Galactic Council chamber was vast, a structure of crystalline steel that hung in orbit above a dying star. It was the heart of galactic politics, where the most powerful empires sent their voices to argue, scheme, and decide the fate of lesser worlds. That day, the chamber was filled with tension. A new name had appeared on the maps: Earth. For weeks, whispers had spread among the council about this young species called humans. They were new to the stars, their technology still crude compared to the mighty civilizations of the galaxy. Their ships were simple, their weapons outdated, their numbers few. To many of the council members, they looked like prey. The holographic map at the center of the chamber glowed faintly, showing Earth and its surrounding colonies. Delegates from across the stars leaned forward, their voices sharp and filled with greed. "They are weak," said a Varkan general, his voice deep like grinding stone. "One swift strike, and Earth will kneel. Their world is rich in resources. Their colonies are unguarded. Why wait? They are perfect for labor," hissed an Othari merchant, his long claws tapping against the table. "Break them, chain them, and sell them. The profit would be endless." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some demanded invasion. Others suggested trade that would soon turn into domination. The air felt heavy with hunger, like predators circling an unaware prey. But then, one voice rose above the noise. It was Elder Koresh of the Thalri. He was old, his scaled skin dulled with age, his body scarred by battles fought centuries ago. He had seen empires rise and fall, and his eyes carried memories that few dared to remember. When he stood, the chamber grew quieter, for even the arrogant respected his years. Koresh's voice was calm, yet it carried a weight that pressed upon every ear. "You see weakness," he said slowly, "but I see danger. Do not attack the humans." Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Varkan general laughed, a harsh, cruel sound. "Danger? From them? Elder, you are blinded by age. They are fragile creatures. Their world is small. Their ships would break under the fire of a single cruiser." Koresh did not flinch. His dark eyes scanned the council, meeting each gaze. "Yes, they are fragile. Yes, their world is small. But it is not weakness. It is a forge. Suffering has shaped them. Pain has taught them to endure. And endurance, my fellow delegates, is the sharpest blade in war." Silence fell for a moment, as if his words carried shadows. But then, laughter filled the chamber. The Othari merchant waved a claw dismissively. "Elder Koresh tells ghost stories. He fears shadows. He forgets that power decides all, not suffering." Another delegate, a proud Narlian admiral, sneered. "What can humans do against fleets that stretch across 100 systems? Against armies bred for war? They will fall just like countless worlds before them." Koresh's jaw tightened. His voice grew heavier, almost sorrowful. "You think you know war. But humans live with it. They do not surrender when struck. They rise. The more they suffer, the stronger they become. If you bring war to their world, you will awaken something you cannot control." He paused, his scarred hand resting on the table. His voice dropped to a whisper, yet it carried across the entire chamber. "They will not just fight. They will burn, and they will reduce empires to ashes." For a heartbeat, no one spoke. The words lingered like a cold wind, stirring unease even in the most arrogant hearts. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably. Others looked away. But the silence broke with mocking laughter. The Varkan general leaned forward, teeth bared in a cruel smile. "Old fool, you fear too much. These humans will be nothing but dust beneath our boots." The chamber erupted once again with arguments, greed, and pride. Koresh lowered his gaze, his chest heavy with sorrow. He knew they would not listen. He had given his warning, but arrogance was louder than wisdom. As the session ended, the holographic map of Earth still glowed at the center, its small blue world surrounded by hungry eyes. Koresh turned away, his heart sinking. He had seen this before, Empires blinded by pride walking willingly into fire. And he knew the fire of humanity would not be gentle. The council dismissed Koresh's warning as mere superstition. After the session, delegates gathered in private chambers, their voices dripping with disbelief, arrogance, and amusement. "Did you hear him?" the Varkan general barked, pacing in his quarters. "Elder Koresh actually thinks humans are dangerous. Fragile humans, small, weak, barely capable of interstellar travel. He must be joking." The Athari merchant clicked his claws together, smirking. "I have traded with countless species. I have seen armies that crumble under pressure, worlds that surrender in a day. And now he tells us these humans will destroy empires. I will wager credits against it. I would pay to watch them try." Even the Narlian admiral, who usually remained silent, shook his head in disbelief. "They are children playing with fire. Let them grow, let them struggle, but do not imagine they could ever match a true military force. They will be crushed." Koresh observed all this from a shadowed balcony, far above the bustling chambers. His scales glimmered faintly under the artificial lights. His heart felt heavy. He had seen this arrogance before. It was always the same: pride, confidence, and the belief that a new, young species could be controlled like pawns. He had watched countless civilizations fall for that very mistake. The truth weighed on him like a burden too heavy to share with others. Humans were not simply another species to exploit or conquer. They carried a strength that was not obvious to the eye. It was a fire that burned quietly, a stubbornness woven into their very nature. The more you attacked them, the fiercer they became. He remembered the few reports that had reached him from afar, of humans struggling against natural disasters, against disease, against each other, and yet, rising every time. Entire nations had fallen into chaos only to rebuild stronger than before. The Thalri elder had studied them, quietly for decades. He knew their potential, even if the galaxy did not. That night, Koresh returned to his quarters, and the memories of human resilience filled his mind. He thought of a small colony on Earth's moon, barely defended yet refusing to surrender to orbital raiders. He thought of humanity's endless wars with itself, wars that tore families apart, yet produced leaders who could unite millions under a single vision. Their flaws were many, but so were their strengths, hidden in plain sight. A knock at his door startled him. One of his younger aides, trembling slightly, entered. "Elder, the council. They are moving forward. Preparations for the first strike on the outer human colonies have already begun." Koresh's dark eyes narrowed. "They do not listen," he said quietly. "They will learn, but not before blood is spilled." He placed a clawed hand over his chest, feeling the weight of the warning he had given, now ignored. "If only they could see what I see. If only they understood that humans are not afraid of fire. They become fire." The aide hesitated. "Do you think they will survive?" Koresh turned, his face etched with sorrow. "They will survive. And when they do, the galaxy will remember why no one should ever underestimate them. The humans, they are dangerous because they never give up, never submit, and never forgive injustice. Every strike against them will forge them stronger, sharper, and more determined than before. Do not doubt this. One day, even the proudest empire will kneel before what they cannot control." His words hung in the air, heavy with truth, while the galaxy outside continued its usual routines, blind to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Delegates laughed, made plans, and sharpened their weapons, all unaware that the very species they dismissed as weak was quietly preparing, not just to survive, but to rise. Koresh looked down at the distant blue planet from his balcony. Earth spun silently, a fragile world, yet one whose people carried the strength of storms, of fire, and of endless hope. His heart clenched. He knew that when the first blow landed, the universe would witness something it had never seen before. Humans who would not break. Humans who would not flee. Humans who would transform suffering into power, and weakness into weapon. The skeptics laughed tonight. But Koresh knew. Laughter would not last. The fire of humanity was already awakening. The first attack came quietly, almost unexpectedly. The Varkan fleet, confident and arrogant, slipped into the outer colonies of the humans, expecting a quick victory. Their ships were sleek, armed with advanced weapons, and their soldiers were trained to crush resistance. They had faced dozens of young civilizations before and destroyed them without hesitation. Humans, they thought, would be no different. But the humans were not what they expected. The first colony the Varkan struck was on Mars, a place where humans had built small cities, surrounded by research labs and factories. There were few defenses, mostly crude turrets and a handful of old starships that would have seemed laughable to any seasoned officer. The Varkan laughed as their fleet entered orbit. They assumed the humans would surrender, that they would plead for mercy and beg for protection. They were wrong. As the Varkan ships opened fire, the humans did not flee. Alarms blared across the colonies. Families ran for shelter, but their soldiers, engineers, and pilots took positions. The old ships that the Varkan had mocked suddenly sprang to life. They moved with unexpected speed, ramming enemy cruisers. Fighters swarmed the largest battleships, dodging missiles and striking weak points the Varkan had never expected. One human pilot, barely 20 years old, shouted over the comms, "We fight for our home. We fight for Earth." It was not just the weapons that surprised the invaders. It was the fierce determination in every human action. Every turret fired with precision, every ship maneuvered with daring, and every soldier fought as though their lives were not just their own, but the lives of everyone they loved. The Varkan general could not believe what he was seeing. Half his fleet had been destroyed in hours by what he had called weaklings. Panic rippled through his officers as human ships, damaged and battered, continued to strike relentlessly. Boarding parties found themselves trapped, fighting humans who refused to surrender even when surrounded. Explosions shook ships. Fire spread through corridors, yet the humans pressed on. Elder Koresh watched from his observation post, silent, his eyes dark with both sorrow and satisfaction. He had warned the council. He had warned them that humans were not weak, that they would not bend. And now the truth was unfolding before him. "The fire has been lit," he whispered to himself. Even as the Varkans scrambled to regroup, humans were already adapting. Engineers repurposed wreckage into shields. Pilots used debris as weapons. Every mistake the invaders made was studied and countered within minutes. It was as though the humans were learning faster than the Varkan could. Imagine, families hid in shelters, but even they felt the pulse of resistance. Stories would later tell of children helping repair small drones, of old scientists guiding soldiers on weak points in enemy ships. Every person, no matter how small, became part of the defense. The battle raged for hours, then days. By the time the Varkan decided to retreat, they had lost nearly half of their fleet. What they had expected to be an easy victory had become a devastating defeat. Their pride shattered, their arrogance wounded. They withdrew with a silence that felt like terror. Koresh did not celebrate. There was no joy in witnessing the power of humans. It was a warning to the rest of the galaxy. He knew that this was only the beginning. Those who had mocked him, those who had ignored his warning, would soon understand that humans did not fight because they were strong. They fought because they refused to break. And once humans fought for what they loved, there was no limit to their fury. The first spark had ignited. The galaxy would soon feel the flames. The humans did not wait for the galaxy to strike again. They had felt the fire of the first attack, and instead of cowering, they moved as one. Every nation, every colony, every community united. Old rivalries, once a source of endless conflict, were set aside. The survival of their species, their home, became the one true priority. Factories on Earth, Mars, and the Moon worked around the clock. Engineers, soldiers, and civilians labored side by side, producing ships, weapons, and armor. Even old spacecraft, long considered outdated, were rebuilt, reinforced, and armed to defend against a fleet that no one could have imagined. The humans did not just rebuild, they adapted. Every mistake made by their attackers was studied, every weakness exploited. Every opportunity turned into advantage. In cities under attack, people refused to abandon hope. Families shared food with soldiers. Children carried messages between bunkers and factories. Scientists who had once debated theory now guided pilots, and troops, offering plans to outmaneuver the enemy. Every person, no matter their age or skill, became part of the defense. In orbit, human starships moved like shadows across the battlefield. They were not as large or as powerful as the fleets of the galaxy's empires, but they were fast, clever, and unpredictable. Pilots risked everything to strike at weak points, to protect their home, to buy time for civilians below. When one ship was destroyed, two more took its place. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They pressed forward. The human strength was not in numbers or in technology alone. It was in their determination. They fought for each other, for their families, and for the planet that had given them life. Every attack against them made them stronger. Every loss was a lesson. Every sacrifice became fuel for their resolve. Elder Koresh watched reports from the battles, his heart heavy yet full of awe. He had seen species rise and fall, civilizations crumble, but never had he seen a species that could endure so much, and yet fight harder each time. Humans did not just survive, they thrived in adversity. They did not just resist, they adapted, they learned, they transformed weakness into strength. News from the colonies reached Earth. Entire Varkan divisions had been forced to retreat. Human soldiers celebrated quietly, for they knew the victory was only temporary. The war had just begun, and the galaxy would not forgive them for defying expectation. Yet humanity did not seek revenge beyond defense. They did not strike other worlds, did not enslave, did not destroy unnecessarily. They fought to protect, to survive, and to ensure the safety of their home. And that restraint, Koresh realized, was what made them even more dangerous. They had the power to annihilate, but they chose justice and purpose. Everywhere, humans told stories of bravery. Stories of pilots who stayed behind to cover retreats, engineers who repaired critical systems under fire, and civilians who helped soldiers escape death. These stories spread quickly, igniting hope and courage even in the darkest hours. The human spirit, Koresh thought, was their true weapon. It was not lasers or missiles, not ships or shields. It was the unbreakable will to survive and protect everything they loved. The galaxy, however, did not see this yet. Some watched silently, fearful now, unsure how to challenge a species that refused to bend. Others mocked, waiting for the humans to fail. But Koresh knew the truth. Humans would never fail in the ways the galaxy expected. As Earth's sun rose over the horizon, casting golden light over the planet, Koresh whispered to himself, "The humans are ready, they are united, and now, the galaxy will learn the price of underestimating them." The first human victories were only the beginning. A storm was coming, and its fire would consume all who dared to bring war to Earth. The galaxy would soon understand that humans were not a species to be conquered. They were a force that could endure anything. And in that endurance lay unimaginable power. The response had begun. Humanity would not bow. Humanity would not break. And humanity would not stop. The Varkan Empire had always believed itself invincible. Its fleets stretched across hundreds of star systems, its soldiers trained from birth to conquer, its leaders confident in their power. They laughed at the warnings of Elder Koresh, dismissing humans as fragile, insignificant creatures. But laughter turned quickly to terror. The humans had learned from the first strike, and now they were ready. Every attack had taught them something new. Every defeat had hardened their will. Earth and its colonies had become a fortress not of walls, but of ingenuity and determination. The humans' response was not chaos. It was a methodical, relentless counterstrike. The Varkan's grand fleet entered orbit above Earth, confident that this time they would crush the human rebellion in one decisive blow. They underestimated the humans' ability to adapt, as if arrogance alone could secure victory. But the humans were waiting, and they had already turned the battlefield to their advantage. Old ships, once considered obsolete, were modified with clever tactics. Missile batteries were positioned on the Moon and Mars, coordinated with ground defenses to strike from unexpected angles. Human pilots executed maneuvers the Varkan had never seen, turning debris and wreckage into traps that destroyed entire squadrons. It was not brute force that won battles. It was strategy, courage, and the refusal to surrender. The first Varkan cruiser exploded, sending a shockwave across the fleet. Panic spread like wildfire. Every misstep was punished. Boarding parties found themselves trapped on ships that had been rigged to collapse under their weight. The humans did not hesitate. They fought with precision, striking at weak points, exploiting every mistake. Every failure of the Varkan fleet made the humans stronger, smarter, more daring. Elder Koresh watched from a distant observation post, his heart heavy but steady. He had warned the council. He had seen this fire long, before the Varkan fleets dared to attack. Now it burned brighter than ever. Planet by planet, the Empire fell. One system after another was lost, as humans adapted faster than the invaders could respond. Starbases that had been considered impregnable were destroyed. Entire fleets were annihilated by humans who seemed to anticipate every move. The pride and arrogance of the Varkan crumbled before them, leaving nothing but smoke, fire, and the hollow echo of defeat. The Empire's leaders began to panic. Orders came too late. Strategies failed, and their mighty fleets turned into floating coffins. Cities were lost, resources plundered, and soldiers who had once sneered at humans now whispered in terror. The Varkan had never imagined resistance like this. They had never imagined a species that could endure loss, learn from it, and strike back harder every time. Koresh's voice broke the silence in his observation room. I warned them. I warned them all. They did not listen, and now they see the ashes of their empire. Yet the humans did not celebrate their victories with cruelty. They did not enslave or annihilate beyond necessity. They acted with precision, with purpose, with restraint. They fought to survive, to protect their home, and to defend the lives they loved. In every victory, there was sorrow, for they mourned the losses even as they pressed forward. The galaxy could not ignore it any longer. The story spread across systems like wildfire. The once proud Varkan Empire was reduced to fragments, its soldiers defeated, its fleets destroyed. Humans had proven that strength was not in size, nor in numbers, nor in advanced technology alone. Strength lay in courage, in unity, and in the unbreakable will to survive. Koresh stared at the holographic projection of the burning empire and whispered, almost to himself, "Do not attack humans. Never forget this lesson. Their fire cannot be stopped. Their fury is born from survival itself." And in that moment, the galaxy understood. The humans had risen, the empire had fallen, and the lesson was clear for anyone foolish enough to doubt them. The galaxy had never known such fear. News of the Varkan Empire's collapse traveled faster than any fleet could carry it. Worlds that had once laughed at humanity now whispered in terror. Generals who had plotted the destruction of Earth grew pale as they realized the humans were not just survivors. They were unstoppable when provoked. Elder Koresh watched the reactions from his quiet observation post, hidden far from the eyes of any council or empire. He had foreseen this long before the first Varkan attack, yet seeing the fear spread across the galaxy brought no satisfaction. Humans were dangerous, yes, but they were not monsters. They fought to protect, not to conquer, and their restraint made them more terrifying than any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. Trade routes that had been secure for centuries now ran empty. Ships hesitated to leave ports, fleets refused to engage humans, and entire star systems reconsidered their alliances. The galaxy had learned a hard lesson. Do not underestimate the species called humans. Meanwhile, humans did not celebrate their victories with arrogance. Cities on Earth, Mars, and the Moon were rebuilt with care. The colonies that had been attacked were strengthened, but the humans offered peace to those who accepted it. They did not become conquerors. They did not enslave worlds in their path. They only demanded respect and survival. Koresh studied reports of human actions. Entire fleets had surrendered when trapped, yet humans treated prisoners with a surprising sense of justice. They dismantled weapons that could cause indiscriminate death, refusing to harm more than necessary. Every attack against them had forged their spirit stronger, but their morality had not broken. Some empires still plotted, some still whispered threats. But the humans' reputation had grown into a shadow that stretched across the stars. Traitors refused to carry weapons to aggressive empires fearing human retaliation. Generals built bunkers and war rooms in secret, yet their strategies faltered against an enemy whose tactics could never be fully predicted. Koresh remembered his warnings to the council. Do not attack the humans. If you do, you will awaken a fire you cannot control. The council had laughed. The Varkan generals had mocked him, and now, across the galaxy, whispers of his prophecy were being repeated with fearful reverence. He was no longer an old advisor. They called him a prophet, the only one who had seen the danger before it struck. Even as fear spread, Koresh noted one truth. Humans did not seek the galaxy's domination. They did not march outward to destroy others unnecessarily. Their power was defensive, reactive, and terrifying in its precision. The lesson for any empire was clear. Provoke humans and they would respond with a fury that could topple empires, yet they would not act without purpose. In the council chambers of other species, Koresh's words were etched into memory. Generals and diplomats whispered them in fear, repeating his warning like a mantra. Do not attack humans. Do not challenge their homes. Do not underestimate their spirit. Back on Earth, life continued with quiet determination. Humans rebuilt, remembered the fallen, and trained for the unknown threats that still lingered in the galaxy. Their unity was stronger than ever, forged in the fires of survival. They were ready to defend themselves again if necessary. Koresh looked at the humans from afar, feeling a mixture of pride and sorrow. He understood the truth now more clearly than ever. Humans were a force of nature, and the galaxy had only begun to learn the cost of underestimating them. The fear that swept across civilizations was real and lasting. Traitors whispered it, diplomats feared it, and generals plotted cautiously. Humans had not conquered the galaxy, but their presence alone reshaped it. They had survived impossible odds, defeated a mighty empire, and shown that the fire of their spirit could not be quenched. Koresh sighed, placing a clawed hand over his chest. They do not seek war, he murmured. But if anyone dares to bring it to them again, the flames will consume all who oppose them. The galaxy will remember this day forever. And so, fear spread, not of human cruelty, but of human strength, unity, and resilience. A new era had begun, and every species would learn to tread carefully around the humans. Years had passed since the galaxy first saw the fire of humanity. Empires that had once laughed at Earth now whispered its name in fear. The Varkan Empire was no more, and other civilizations had learned to respect the humans, or at least to tread carefully. But Elder Koresh understood that the true strength of humans lay not in war, nor in fleets, nor in weapons, but in something far deeper. Their spirit. He traveled to Earth at last, quietly, unnoticed. From orbit, the blue planet shone like a jewel, calm and serene, hiding the fury it could unleash if provoked. Koresh had seen destruction before, yet nothing compared to the force humans carried quietly within themselves. He landed in a city rebuilt after the first attacks, where children played freely in the streets and families lived in peace. Yet he could feel the heartbeat of vigilance beneath it all. Humans had endured unimaginable suffering. Their colonies had been bombed. Their fleets had been destroyed. Lives had been lost. And still they had not bowed, had not begged for mercy, had not surrendered to despair. Instead, they had rebuilt, trained, and prepared to defend themselves again if needed. Every hardship had made them stronger. Every loss had forged their will. And every victory had tempered their restraint with wisdom. Koresh walked through the streets, observing quietly. Soldiers trained in quiet fields. Engineers repaired ships, carefully, methodically. Children laughed, their innocence undimmed by the shadow of war. Elder Koresh could see it now clearly. Humans were dangerous not because they sought war, but because they would never allow themselves to be enslaved or destroyed. A human leader approached him, tall, calm, and steady. Her eyes carried both, sorrow and resolve, reflecting the weight of responsibility for millions of lives. Koresh bowed slightly, humbled. "I warned the council," he said softly. "I told them not to attack you. I told them you were not what they believed. I have seen your fire long before they did, and now the galaxy knows it." The human leader smiled gently, a mixture of pride and sorrow in her expression. "We do not seek to conquer," she said. "We do not wish to destroy. We only protect our home, our people, and the life that is ours. But anyone who threatens that, they will learn what it means to awaken our fury." Koresh nodded. He had watched species rise and fall, empires crumble and reform, yet humans were unlike any he had known. They were not driven by cruelty, nor by greed, nor by blind ambition. They were driven by hope, by love, and by the refusal to surrender. Their power was born from endurance, sharpened by suffering and tempered by morality. The elder took a deep breath, feeling the weight of centuries of history on his shoulders. "You are a lesson to the galaxy," he whispered. "A warning to those who would underestimate the weak, and a proof that strength lies in the spirit, not in numbers." He looked around one last time, at the city alive with movement and life, and he realized the greatest truth of all. Humans were dangerous because they were unpredictable, unyielding, and unstoppable when defending what they loved. They were a force of nature not to be crushed, not to be ignored, and certainly not to be provoked. Koresh turned to leave, knowing his mission was complete. He had seen the fire of humanity, and he understood why the council had been wrong to doubt him. He had witnessed the truth that words alone could not convey, the human spirit, their resilience, their courage, their unity. The final lesson of the galaxy was now clear. Do not attack humans. The empires that had fallen had learned too, late. The galaxy would never forget it again. And far above the planet, Elder Koresh whispered into the silence of space, a warning to all who might listen. Do not attack the humans, for if you do, they will rise, they will endure, and they will turn your empire into ashes. Remember this, always. Earth continued to shine peacefully, innocent yet unstoppable, a quiet giant in the galaxy, and the galaxy remembered the humans, forever.